Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. MENG's blind date. Mystery Matron, Part 3. Just as MENG was about to lose his patience, he finally heard the attendant call out from outside the room, "The wind room is this way. Please follow me. The woman is finally here." MENG cleared away the impatience between his eyebrows and sat up straight. Imitating his late father, he assumed the posture of a calm and steady figure, then raised his eyes to look outside. He only heard the sound of steady footsteps, neither too fast nor too slow, walking in his direction. Then, an indistinct figure passed through the bamboo curtain. The curtain was half rolled up and the first thing that entered his eyes was a silver water pipe engraved with one-legged dragon pattern. Tied to the pipe was a light blue sachet embroidered with palea flowers. The hand that lit the pipe was extremely elegant and slender. On her sensuous wrist was a cinnabar-colored mole on the side. MENG vaguely felt like he had seen this hand somewhere before, but it was like looking at flowers in a fog, so he couldn't recall it properly. Just as he was pondering over this matter, the other person entered the room. The sorrow-relieving scroll stated that when one wore the Dobeo special sachet, the sachet would wrap an illusion around the wearer's body. To the other party's eyes, the wearer would have an appearance which would be a mixture of the wearer's original appearance and some features that the other party found to their likings. In this case, MENG was sure that what he saw was not Ro Ying's true appearance. Since MENG felt that this woman should look a certain way, what his eyes saw leaned towards that feature. However, a hint of her true self was also visible. Therefore, since MENG thought that Ro Ying should like something like his mother, the person that came inside after the drawn curtain really did look somewhat like Madame Wang. Her skin was very fair, she looked dignified and gentle, and there was a slight frown between her eyebrows. MENG suddenly stood up as if he had been hit by a boulder. Who wouldn't be moved when they saw someone resembling their beloved deceased mother appeared before them? Even if he knew that it was not real, he couldn't help the way he felt. He opened his mouth and the world mother almost came out. Fortunately, the attendant just then followed Ro Ying into the room, which suddenly snapped MENG's mind to the present. MENG's tongue rolled up as he hastily changed mother into you. "You. Are you Wang Xiaoshui?" Ro Ying asked. Her voice was like cold spring water. Although the voice was supposedly distorted by the sachet's illusion as well, it didn't sound anything like Madame Wang's at all. Ro Ying sized him up with her glass-like apricot eyes. For a split second, MENG had a very strange feeling. He felt that this Ro Ying was giving him a calculative and cold gaze with a hint of impatience. She then said, "I don't have a very good memory and I forget names easily. Let's make this simple. Can I call you Wang?" Even though it was posed as a question, her tone implied that she didn't care for the answer. She even sounded a bit aggressive. MENG muttered to himself, how could he felt that this person was like his mother? However, muttering aside, sect leader Shui was still a sect leader, and under the careful guidance of Elder Suanji, Shui Ziming's current interpersonal abilities was nothing compared to his past. And so he bore himself as a sect leader should by clearing his throat and answering, "That's fine. It's nice to meet you, Ro." He wanted to call her Miss Ro, but Villa Master Ma was quite an ingenious man. In order to ensure that people would find their soulmates without prior prejudice, he put various spells into the Dobeo sachets. Aside from hiding the bearer's appearance under an illusion, the other party was forbidden from telling their age, height, weight, and even their gender. So when MENG tried to address his date as Miss, the silencing spell activated on the word. Old Villa Master Ma seemed to be in the background, waving his arms and shouting, "Age, height, weight, looks, and gender are not important when finding one's true love. Will all cultivators please look and understand the soul beneath the skin?" At this time though, MENG was not aware of how Villa Master Ma had painstakingly designed all of this. He even thought that this Dobeo Villa's product had probably malfunctioned again. He knitted his brows and tried to correct himself, Ro-N. Ro Ying accepted the address with ease with the demeanor of someone of equal stature as his and sat opposite Xue Meng. Xue Meng was flabbergasted. No way. Should this sister be making some proper salutation and giving words of gratitude? Matron Ruo glanced at him indifferently. She nodded and said, "You can sit down. No need to keep standing up." Xue Meng. What kind of tone is this? If this has happened when he was younger, Xue Meng would have already jumped on his feet and started a loud argument, but now Xue Meng resisted the urge. He was the most sought-after man in the lower cultivation world, owned a number of mountain peaks and had restored Shisheng Peak to its glory on behalf of his father. He is better than this. He shouldn't get mad with ladies. So, Xue Meng sat down in front of Ro Ying. He straightened his posture, extended his fingers to push the Ziwa Pavilion's refreshments menu towards the other person and asked, "What would you like to drink?" Ro Ying, however, didn't seem to be interested in any tea and pastries as she replied, "Get whatever you like." After that, he leaned back against the patterned sandalwood chair and added some dried stuff into the water pipe. Xue Meng asked, "Do you smoke tobacco or hemp?" "I use my own mixture." Ro Ying's eyelids were lowered, seeming not inclined to look up as she continued, "It won't affect you in any way." "Hold on, aren't you a bit young?" "Who told you I am young?" Xue Meng stared and asked, "How old are you?" Ro Ying leaned against the window, ignited a flame with her fingertips and lit the water pipe. She then took an indifferent puff and slowly said, "What's that got to do with you?" Ro Ying lifted her refined chin and pointed at the brocade sachet hanging around Xue Meng's waist. "Also, that person surnamed Ma set up a pile of restrictions, so I can't answer that question until I get rid of the sachet. Why don't we just relax? I'm just here to see you. I'm not actually trying to find a cultivation partner." Xue Meng was shocked. Fuck, how dare this woman stole his line. If neither of the couple having a blind date have genuine intention of pursuing a relationship, it's specifically important to seize the opportunity to be the one to declare it first, since the one who lagged behind would then be the one to lose face. Xue Meng currently felt like he very much had no face. Not only was he greatly embarrassed, but he also felt that this person must be exceptionally experienced with having blind dates. How else could she know how to strike first and gain the upper hand? She must have been dragged off to meet thousands of potential candidates by matchmakers and had been rejected 1,001 times for being too fierce. That must be so. Xue Meng's handsome face was slightly green as he ground his teeth and said, "You thought I'm here for a blind date? I'll tell you what. My family's circumstances are very good, and with just a wave of my hand, the line of people knocking at our doorway would stretch from Yangzhou to Sichuan." Ro Ying only looked at him indifferently. When Xue Meng delivered his lines, he felt like an emperor. Afterwards, when he noticed that the other person barely paid him any mind, he suddenly felt like an idiot. The feeling of being an idiot intensifies when he heard what Ro Ying has to say with a gentle and mild tone. Ro Ying took another puff of her water pipe and slightly tilted her head to the waiter and said, "Bring the Jade Terrace Plum Blossom set for this guest." The waiter's face was saying he had seen all of this before. Xue Meng's eyes bugged out as he asked, "Didn't you say I can order what I like?" "I'm a regular customer here," Matron Ruo said with great presence. "The Jade Terrace Plum Blossom set is quite sweet. It's most suitable for unsophisticated young folks." Xue Meng got even more angry. He was so mad that when the tea arrived, he didn't want to move at all. The tea was clear and brewed to perfection, the pastries was sparkling. The set looked exceptionally attractive, but he wasn't tempted even a tiny bit. Ro Ying asked, "Why aren't you having them?" Xue Meng answered in a rage, "I like to waste my money, what's it to you?" When Ro Ying heard him talk like this, she squinted her apricot eyes and created some faint lines with the pipe smoke and asked, "Is Wang from Dobeo Villa in Westlake?" "No." "A wealthy merchant from Linyi?" "No." "A disciple of Gai Yuye sect?" "Gai Yuye? What's so good about them?" Xue Meng asked lightly. Forget about their disciples, heh, even if their sect leader presented a fortune in front of me, I wouldn't take it. For some unknown reasons, Ro Ying slightly raised her eyebrows upon hearing this. Xue Meng reacted, "What's with that expression? You don't believe me?" Ro Ying sneered but did not reply. She simply continued to smoke her pipe. After a while, she suddenly said, "Since you're so wonderful, why don't we order some more? I haven't had breakfast yet." Although Xue Meng currently found her unpleasant, he didn't refute her since she said she wanted to eat something. He picked up the menu and asked, "What do you want to have?" 18 exquisite delights. I order this item every time I come here. Xue Meng said indifferently, "Fine, just order, ack, cough, cough." His eyes almost popped out when he happened to glance at the price of that item in the menu. "You order this item every time you come?" "With a pot of top-grade Jinchin Chunlu tea," Ro Ying said unconcernedly. Xue Meng could feel the blood in eyes coagulating. It was as if even a gently pat from a kitten would make him violently cough blood at that moment. If it weren't for the fact that he picked up this place, he would have suspected that Ro Ying was someone employed by the Ziwa Pavilion who was playing a trick on him by making him pay for the most expensive item in the house. After the meal, the sect leader's heart was bleeding and his purse was half empty. When they stepped out of the Ziwa Pavilion, Xue Meng's footsteps were lagging. "Are you unwell?" Faced with Ro Ying's slightly concerned inquiry, the proud sect leader Xue forced his spirits up and replied, "No, not at all. I'm very well. If one was sick, one should not try to hide it and avoid the doctor." Xue Meng stared at her and said, "No one is sick. I'm perfectly fine." "Really?" Ro Ying's voice seemed to be soaked with herbal concoctions and her words were suffused with medicinal scent as she said, "Your lower hips is hollow, your waist and knees are limp and lacking energy, and you have heat in the 5 centers." Her almond eyes swept over Xue Meng's whole body, giving Xue Meng the impression that he was being dissected. "Your distinguished self has kidney problems," she continued. Xue Meng was so angry that he shouted, "Shut up you quack." The quack added indifferently, "Also, your stress level is to the roof." Xue Meng. It seemed that his previous speculations were all wrong. Women who followed the medical cultivation were not necessarily like his mother who made those around her felt as if they were being enveloped in spring breeze. They are those who disgrace the path by making people felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles. But the thing that devastated Xue Meng the most at the moment was the condition set by the sorrow-relieving scroll. When the couple agreed to meet one another, they must stay together for at least 6 hours or the date would not be considered as the scroll being actively used. Fine. He was here now and the money has already been spent. If he didn't ensure that this will be counted, then he would really lose out. Therefore, Xue Meng decided that he would endure. He must endure. Moreover, this woman has been treating Xue Meng indifferently from the very beginning, which greatly gnawed at Xue Meng's ego. This fueled the decision that Xue Meng made in his heart. Not only would he endure, but within the next 5 hours, he would show this woman what a great catch he was. That he was the type who scoff at pearls and gold like they were nothing. That he was one of those filthy rich kind. He would make this wealthy matron endlessly regret how she looked down on him. At the very least, he must make her feel a strong sense of failure. However, he had already dined with her in Yangzhou's most luxurious Ziwa Pavilion and she didn't even bat an eyelash. So, where else could he bring her that would intimidate her? As he thought about this question, he suddenly remembered an exquisite place. With his morale boosted by his current sense of injustice, sect leader Xue raised his head arrogantly and said profoundly, "We strangers came together by chance, so I will not allow you to worry yourself over my health. In any case, we still have quite a bit of time left, so we shouldn't just stand here foolishly. Why don't I take you to a place and broaden your horizons?" Ro Ying was silent for a moment and then she asked, "Where are you taking me?" Xue Meng eventually led her to Changyi Market. This was a building with deep eaves and numerous roof ridges that overlapped along its 3 wooden stories. It stood near Yangzhou port and was well known amongst the locals of Yangzhou as a market for stolen goods. It was rumored that most of the things that could not be seen in the local cultivation world would find their way into this building, and the reason why the group behind this market could arrogantly defy the rest of the cultivation world was largely due to the support of Gai Yuye sect. When Xuemeng was younger, he once wanted to come here and check the place out. However, Madame Wang deliberately stalled him by holding him down and pleaded with him 1,000 times using all sorts of ridiculous excuses until finally she said, "MENG, the Changyi market in Yangzhou City isn't a good place. Not only were the items overpriced, the things that they sell, some of them are." She seemed to be embarrassed to continue as her cheeks reddened slightly. At last she coughed lightly and said, "Besides, you don't have enough money. If you go in there, you'll go out completely broke. Remember, when you go to Yangzhou City, make sure to avoid the Changyi market." Xuemeng was a good son who obeyed his mother, and with incomparable innocence, he didn't understand what his mother was trying to convey. He could only ask curiously, "Is Changyi market a place where idiots with too much money go?" Xue Zhenyang, who was nearby at that time, laughed heartily and said to his bewildered son, "Yeah, not exactly. Your mother always treats you like a baby and is too embarrassed to tell you things. But as your father, I'm different. Some things, ack." Before he could continue, Madame Wang elbowed him. Cough. Cough. Xue Zhenyang covered his hurting chest and hastily changed his tune. "There are some things you really shouldn't know." Xuemeng looked at them confusedly, but his embarrassed parents only smiled at him. The foolish boy really had no idea what they were talking about. At that time, Shimei came and asked if he would like to go with him to the other side of the mountain to collect medicine for their Shizun. So he left, wondering what was that about. But from there on, Xuemeng would remember that he should avoid Changyi market as things were expensive there, and that the only people who go there were the idiots who have too much money. Currently, in order to get back his dignity and also because he felt that as a sect leader, he should broaden this Miss Ro Ying's horizons, he led her into this vast and imposing gold and red building. Along the way, Ro Ying repeatedly asked him if he really wanted to go to Changyi market. In order to hide his ignorance, Xuemeng waved his hand and haughtily raised his chin, like a peacock spreading its tail. "You are a frequent customer at Ziwa Pavilion and I'm a VIP at Changyi market, so I'll take you there." Ro Ying's expression at this declaration was rather inscrutable. Afterwards, Xuemeng found himself in front of a senior administrator of Changyi market, looking as if he has been struck by multiple bolts of lightings. He was red from his ankles to his hair. What VIP token? My mother didn't say anything about such things. She said I could just go in whenever. The senior administrator looked at him with squinted eyes. "It was probably over 10 years since your mother last came to Yangzhou. Changyi market's rules have changed and only masters and mistresses with VIP token are welcome to do business here. If you don't have one, then please go back." I. Xuemeng wanted to find a piece of tofu to clobber himself to death. He already boasted that he has free entry to this place. Didn't he just slap his own face? After posturing for a while, he stubbornly proclaimed, "Ah, I have such a bad memory. You see, this is what happened." The senior administrator crossed his arms. This old turtle had seen all sort of people and Xuemeng was too pure and naive. He chuckled as he waited for whatever shoddy explanation Xuemeng would give. I left in a hurry today and forgot the token at home." "Yeah, that's truly unfortunate, but then I have no choice but ask the two of you to leave for today." Xuemeng looked at the old turtle, who returned his gaze with dog eyes. He once again felt wronged and deeply embarrassed. His wits were so scattered that he didn't notice the hand that stretched out from behind him. A slender wrist that was like that of the finest porcelain reached out to show a token made of jade with gold beads. The warm glow of the white jade against her arms made the cinnabar-colored mole on her wrist stood out. I brought mine. When the senior administrator saw the token, he suddenly shook. The wrinkles on his old face almost disappeared due to his astonishment, terror, and the compulsion to grovel. A heavenly VIP token. Why haven't you opened the door yet? Ro Ying said coldly. Oh, of course. Right away. The thick heavy door made of sandalwood was opened immediately. The senior administrator bowed low enough as if he was kowtowing to a great aunt whom he had wronged greatly. Ro Ying swung her wide silver and blue sleeves and looked back at Xue Meng, who stood dumbly like a wooden chicken. Then with a hint of mockery she said, since Wang was greatly experienced, why don't you lead the way? Xue Meng. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. Xue Meng's blind date. Mystery Matron, Part 4. Before entering the doors of Changyi Market, Xue Meng braced himself and said, fine, I'll lead the way. After he entered, he suddenly felt overwhelmed. Just what sort of trashy place is this Changyi Market? Isn't this kind of thing harmful to society? Look at these maidservants. Just what kind of clothes were they wearing? Why were they dressed like the nine-tailed fox demons? Their breasts, legs, and waists were all exposed that he couldn't even look at them. The sect leader in charge of Yangzhou was Zhang Yuchen, right? Zhang Yuchen, that bastard. How could he allow such an immoral place to be opened in the middle of the city? Ro Ying seemed to have seen through his predicament. She smiled and said, if Master Wang is not used to this kind of environment, then we can go somewhere else. There's no need to force yourself. Who said I'm forcing myself? You don't know. Have you heard of the incorrigible cultivator ranking? I have some idea. Xue Meng's irredeemable mouth said, well, I rank number 1 on that list. Isn't that Mei Hanks you? That's me keeping a low profile for other people's sake. I asked them to remove my name from the list. Oh, you can do that. Ro Ying sneered, how much did that cost you? What's that got to do with you? Xue Meng rolled his eyes and walked forward with a swagger, though his ears were very red. With from those dolled-up female shopkeepers who might as well have their ass hanging out, Xue Meng could still ignore them. As long as he didn't pay them enough attention, they weren't that provocative. However, he couldn't make heads or tails of anything these stalls were selling. He couldn't understand even when the vendors loudly called out the name of these wares. Xue Meng knew the individual words, but when they were put together. The Haitang Essence Collectible Edition. 9 dragons, 1 phoenix, double dragon penetration. Now in full volume. Don't miss this opportunity. These volumes were autographed by the authors Han Mei and Di Shengkuang Cao. Daganjun's Extracted Essence Shaft. The Daganjun of our shop is a unique magical shaft that would transform into the size of any of the cultivators listed in the size ranking of the greatest heroes of the cultivation world. Do you want to have as much as Grandmaster Chu was getting? Do you want to experience sharing sword flights with the famous twin of Kunlun? You only need to get a Daganjun to have these extraordinary experiences. It would surely be eternally memorable. Just listen to that. What is this bullshit? In spite of the chaos in his heart, Xue Meng willed his face to remain perfectly calm. It was exceptionally calm as he stole a glance towards Ro Ying's way and found her smirking at the sight of him. Xue Meng got even more furious and marched to the stall with an unscrupulous air of a frequent buyer. Give me 10 of those magical shaft. Shopkeeper. Ro Ying. Xue Meng looked back at them and said, what? Why are you looking at me that way? He rubbed his nose and asked, is there something on my face? The shopkeeper choked for a long time before he managed to cordially said, honored customer, our family's Daganjun are designed in accordance to that of those listed in the size ranking of the greatest heroes of the cultivation world. Once the seal is released, the effect is vigorous and very similar to that of the original heroes. If your appetite is not that of a wolf at 30 and a tiger at 40, I suggest that you buy only one. Shuemeng had no idea what the shopkeeper had just said. He looked at the seemingly white, tender, and plum radishes nestled in the brocade boxes. He had no clue what the daganjun would transform into once it was unsealed. He also didn't know what the hell is the size ranking of the greatest heroes of the cultivation world or the meaning of appetite that is like a wolf at 30 and a tiger at 40. It would have been sensible to humbly ask for clarification at this point, but unfortunately, Shuemeng was not the sensible kind. Shuemeng thought that men who thinks independently were the most capable. So, he thought things through independently for a while and had an epiphany: these daganjun were probably like 1,000-year-old ginseng. Once unsealed, they'll have vigorous effect on a person, exactly like 1,000-year-old ginseng would. Moreover, cultivators in their 30 and 40 who were like wolf and tiger would often experience blockades in their meridians, and this condition will require ginseng tonic for treatments. However, these daganjun were highly potent, so an ordinary cultivator would only need one of them to unblock their meridians. Everything made sense now. Shuemeng applauded himself loudly in his heart and said arrogantly to the shopkeeper, "How could one be enough for my consumption?" The shopkeeper implored, "2 is not impossible, but you really do not need more than 3. I may be a black market merchant, but I am no opportunist. I have to make things clear for you." Shuemeng said impatiently, "Why you, just give me what I asked." Sir, you're asking for too many." The shopkeeper wiped the sweat off his forehead as he continued, "Your body won't be able to handle it." "Humph," Shuemeng replied, "as if I haven't had these before. Forget 2, even 20 are only enough to last me for 2 or 3 days. This time, the shopkeeper was stunned into silence. He merely looked at Shuemeng with pale lips in awe, then his eyes moved down all the way to Shuemeng's. "What are you looking at?" Shuemeng was alerted, glaring at him angrily. "Don't you want to do business? Don't look where you shouldn't." The shopkeeper immediately raised his gaze away from Shuemeng's lower body and coughed. "This honored customer has been endowed with great gifts. This one pays his respects. Then I'll pack for you 10 daganjun. Do you want the size of Grandmaster Mo?" Shuemeng. What does he meant by the size of Grandmaster Mo? What does that dog Mo Ran have to do with anything? Shuemeng pondered for a while, then arrived at a conclusion with his extraordinary intelligence. Did he meant the scale of spiritual endurance is the same as that of Mo Ran? That he cannot accept, if it's about the spiritual endurance of the current great heroes in the cultivation world, then his was not much worse than Mo Ran's. Thus, he replied calmly, "No. I want the size of sect leader Shue." The shopkeeper was stunned and said, "The honored customer must be joking. Where's sect leader Shue on the top 10 list?" Shuemeng was surprised by what he heard, but then he was more furious than surprise. Shueziming is not on the top 10 list. The shopkeeper was totally baffled. How could Shueziming be? The veins in Shuemeng's forehead was bulging out as he cut in, "Why not?" The two bickered at each other like a chicken talking to a duck for a long while until both of their voices had gone hoarse. Neither noticed Ro Ying, who had been standing on the side watching them, whose frown was getting deeper and deeper as they went on. Her glass-like eyes looked back and forth at Shuemeng several times until suddenly, he grabbed Shuemeng's arm. Shuemeng turned his head and asked, "What are you grabbing my arm for? You should know better than to initiate contact between man and woman. Do you actually know what these daganjun are being used for?" "Sure. It's like ginseng. You use them to restore spiritual energy." Ro Ying. Shopkeeper. Ro Ying turned around and said to the shopkeeper, "I'm unsealing one of your monsters. You can bill 2 taels of silver to the account of Gaiyu Ye sect." As she spoke, she raised her hand and pointed to the sky. The sealing talisman on the brocade box was released with a bang. What appeared to be an ordinary radish-like shaft suddenly burst into a brilliant light and before the eyes of every onlooker, turned into a lengthy, vivid, and lifelike, very detailed, Exquisite, incredibly huge, jade, penis. Oh look. It could even move by itself. Meng stiffened and his face instantly turned green. He pointed angrily at the shopkeeper, almost biting his tongue in the process as he stammered, You scumbag. The shopkeeper was shocked and aggrieved as he replied, You're the one who wanted to buy them? You even said that one is not enough for you. Meng could no longer recall what he had said. His greenish face turned to red again, then changed color between green and red for a few times. Covering his face, he had the sudden urge to run away, but then he hit a solid body. He had backed into Ro Ying, who was blocking his path. Why did that body felt nothing like a woman at all? Ro Ying looked at him coldly and called tentatively, Meng. Meng was shocked as he asked, How did you know? Who are you? Ro Ying didn't say anything but instead grabbed his collar and dragged him out of Changyi Market. Meng yelled and tried to resist, but it felt like pushing back a mountain. As soon as they got outside, she looked for an isolated pavilion by the river. Only when they got to the isolated pavilion did Ro Ying let go of him. She then brushed her sleeves and turned to face Meng. Meng felt as if he was almost strangled to death. He checked out his neck and repeatedly coughed, You dog. You, cough, who the hell are you? Ro Ying raised her hand as her fingertips flashed with a bluish light. Before Meng could see clearly, the special sachets issued by Dobeo Manor for illusion spell around their waist were neatly cut into pieces. Meng looked up and almost hit his head against the pavilion pillar in shock. It's you. After the illusion spell has been dispelled, what stood before him was a tall and handsome man. He wore a magnificent silver-blue robes that fell to the floor with luxurious embroidery of a peacock in silk thread that delicately depict the Gaiyu Sex peacock symbol. However, no matter how grand the robes were, it was nothing compare the man's very own presence. He had a refined eyebrow with a straight nose, an elegant mouth and a pair of apricot eyes that seemed to be filled with an unceasing misty rain. It was as if the man was born with a sense of arrogant pride. Zhang Yuchen. Turned out that Ro Ying was no other than the sect leader of Gaiyu, the richest man in the cultivation world, Zhang Shi. Matron Zhang, no. Zhang Yuchen cut off Meng words with a single statement, You are such a disappointment. Meng. If Meng hadn't been choked until he was lightheaded, he would have killed him with one blow. This person's face was so delicate, how could he say such shameless things without a blink? What an exemplar sect leader you are, thoughtlessly wandering about and lazily spending your time in this kind of place. I wonder, what other questionable things are you up to? At this, Meng shook himself back to full awareness. He coughed some more and put down the hand that was rubbing his neck, then stared squarely at Zhang Shi. Why are you scolding me? What gives you the right to do that? Zhang Yuchen said angrily, You're still young. Shouldn't you be meeting female cultivators from reputable families in decent and proper settings? But no, here you are listening to that Shark Manor Master Ma's poisonous words and actually bought that promiscuous sorrow-relieving scroll. You're such a disgrace. Meng retorted just as angrily, Aren't you as guilty of that as well? Look, you're already at that age and you even, with my mother. Why aren't you looking after the Gaiyu sect like you were supposed to instead of messing about with the younger generations with that pretty face of yours? Didn't you realize that your date might be younger than your son? Not that I'm saying I'm your son, but what I'm getting at is that, you're the real disgrace. Zhang Shi got even more furious as he whipped his sleeves in anger. He retorted with gritted teeth, I wasn't doing this to go on a date. Then why did you? Oh, I see. You were checking out the products of your rival, Manor Master Ma, right? You said he was as shark, but what does that say about your very own Gaiyu? Absolutely shameless. I'm shameless and you're not. A big strong man like you giving himself the nickname Xiaoxue like a little girl, what face do you have? I can't lose any more face than you have. You impudent. You bullshitter. Shweziming. Zhang Yuchen. An old couple driving an ox cart slowly passed by them. The wife asked, "Husband, what's the young couple in the pavilion arguing about?" "Wife, your eyes are going bad. Those two are brothers." "Eh? Isn't that one in silver and blue robes a lady?" "No. It's a man. He has a delicate face but you can see that he's a lot taller than his brother." Shwemeng. Jiangshi. Shwemeng stomped his feet in anger. "Look at how old you already are and you're still out day and night trying to take advantage of other people." Jiangshi replied indifferently, "Our medical sect has always been like this. If you don't like it, you can join Gaiyuya and change it yourself." Shwemeng was so furious that he almost growled, "Ayak! I don't want to deal with you anymore. That old woman saw you as a woman and she was right. I named myself Wang Xiaoxue because the scroll made a mistake, but you naming yourself Ro Ying was clearly to pretend to be a lady. I picked Ro Ying because..." "Because what?" "Because when the Palia flowers blooms, it made me happy." However, knowing that Palia was Wang Chuking's favorite flower, Jiangshi was afraid that saying anything more would just create further misunderstanding, so he kept his mouth shut. "Ha! I was spot on. Just admit it already." Jiangshi raised his hand towards Shwemeng's face as if to slap him for talking back to his elders. However, as his hands came near to Shwemeng's mouth, he suddenly felt that arguing by the river with this idiot is really beneath him, so he forcefully put his hand down. At this time, the sickness in his chest flared up. Jiangshi turned his head, covered his mouth with his sleeves and coughed repeatedly. At first, Shwemeng thought he was choking from anger and felt a sense of satisfaction, but when he realized that the coughing sounds really painful, so much so that Jiangshi's eyes seemed to be welling up with tears, he became nervous and asked, Hey, what's wrong with you?" Jiangshi coughed violently, his eyes turned red. He raised his water pipe and with slightly trembling fingers, he took a few puffs. Shwemeng was startled as he asked, "Why are you smoking when you're coughing like that?" Jiangshi ignored the question. After a few more drags, his symptoms lessened. He gasped for breath for a bit and slowly straightened up. Walking outside the pavilion, he silently looked at the running water and said after a long while, "Get lost. Go back to Shisheng Peak. Is that your injuries from the war? There's no illness in this world that I, Zhang Yuchen, can't treat. I have no use for your concern." The small thread of softness that Shwemeng developed with great difficulty towards Jiangshi had been forcefully cut. He stood there for a while, trying to school his expression, desperately trying to control his face from revealing too much. Jiangshi took a few more puffs on his water pipe before he looked up and exhaled gradually, and he continued, "Anyways, you're not a child anymore. It's about time you find a decent person and start a family. Don't waste your energy into this vulgar dating nonsense. Find a wife you know the background of, someone you clearly know the character of, her family, her skills and her looks." He paused, then frowned again. "This is not the kind of thing that Manor Master Ma's sorrow-relieving scroll can provide you." Shwemeng stared and asked, "Zhang Yuchen, just what are you saying? What was this marriage talk all about? I can understand other people pushing me to start a family, but did you take the wrong medicine?" Zhang Yuchen coolly turned half a face towards Shwemeng as he replied, "It's true that all marriage talk was useless, but it is only useless for me. Shwemeng. It's not the same for you. You should be carrying the family line. You should get married." Shwemeng was very glad that his father was Xue Zhengyang, not Zhang Yuchen. He had never met anyone more hypocritical than Zhang Yuchen. He dared to excuse himself from one rule over another and yet imposed same rules to Shwemeng and forced him to get married. Zhang Yuchen was truly a dog. When Shwemeng returned to Shisheng Peak, he furiously stuck a giant cross through the card with the name Ro Ying on it and tore it to pieces. Since Jiangshi didn't want him to do this, then he'll definitely do it. There's no way in hell would he allow Manor Master Ma's treasure box to fall into the hands of such unscrupulous businessman like Jiangxi. With this in mind, Xuemeng felt his fighting spirits rose once again and spread out the remaining cards to check out the other mystery people. This time he knew better and understood that the sorrow-relieving scroll might recommend a fellow male to him. He resolved to carefully do his own screening this time. At the very least, he was resolved to pick a woman close to his own age. He, Xueziming, will never admit defeat. After careful deliberation, Xueziming, who refused to admit defeat, picked out a second card for someone with the nickname of Leng Gong. Although the sorrow-relieving scroll mixed up men and women, surely someone who had entered the cold palace can't be a man. This Leng Gong must be a pitiful lonely lady. Note: cold palace refer to the remote place of an imperial place where a concubine who had fallen out of favor was sent to. The card described Leng Gong as follows. Peevish temperament, blunt with people and doesn't have much common sense, but was a great catch. Because this person had long ago been abandoned in the cold night and spent over 10 years alone guarding an empty bed, Leng Gong held a level of mistrust and disbelief about love that was quite distinct from most. This was to a point that this person suffered from some sort of madness which made them fall easily to negativity and self-doubt. Perhaps only the most tolerant and gentle cultivation partner can heal their heart and ignite their inner passion. Likes, intense stuff. It could be said that Xuemeng was actually a very kind-hearted child. Normal people would shy away from this kind of prospective partner, but Xuemeng chose her. The reason why Xuemeng picked her, aside from assuming that she was a lady, was because upon reading about her in the card, he felt that this is someone really pitiful. Guarding an empty bed, mistrust and disbelief, madness and scars in her heart. What a miserable lady this was. The fickle lover who had abandoned her must be really shameless and cold-blooded. It's like a second Jiangxi. A scum of the cultivation world. Xuemeng thought that in any case, this wouldn't be a real date. This girl's situation was so bad that no one would probably choose to go out with her, and then her heart would be hurt even more and fed off her mistrust and self-doubt. That seemed really sad. This lady also liked intense things and seemed very aggressive towards others. He wondered if she was the kind who turned in themselves once they hit their threshold of emotional pain. The more Xuemeng thought, the more he felt that he could not let this stand aside. A lesson Xue Zhenyang taught him many years ago seemed to ring in his ears once again. Pity mankind with all its sufferings. If you have enough strength, use all that strength to help. So Xuemeng, who had the same sense of justice and compassion as his father, made a grand decision. All right. He was going to offer this Leng Gong a gift of a warm flame. With his mind made up, Xuemeng immediately sent message to Miss Leng Gong through the sorrow-relieving scroll and requested a meeting in 3 days' time wearing the Dobeo Villa illusion sachet in Vuchame town in Sichuan. End chapter.